المرسلين ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الخلق وأعز المرسلين حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين سيما بقية الله روحي وأرواح العالمين له الفداء. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا. قال الله الحكيم في محكم كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل لا أسألكم عليه أجرا إلا المودة في القربى. آمنا بالله. صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. عظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمصابنا بأبي محمد الإمام الحسن العسكري صلوات الله وسلامه عليه. Dear mu'mineen and mu'minat, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our efforts as we come again to remember Ahlul Bayt salawatullah wa salamu alayhim, learn from their school and commemorate on this night the martyrdom anniversary of Imam Al-Askari, who was martyred on the 8th of the Rabi'ul Awwal, the 8th of this month, which coincides with, I believe, Monday of this week or this coming week. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us amongst those who learn from the fountains of the knowledge of Ahlul Bayt and this Imam. Salamullah alayhi. The concept or the discussion that we were up to in our theological discussion is the concept of imama, or divine leadership. We went through the concept of tawheed, and we also discussed the prophethood. We discussed the books, Quran and other holy books or scriptures. And we came now to the concept of leadership or divine leadership or imama. And let us dissect the concept of imama and have a better understanding of the imama, so that we don't go to any extreme in our belief, neither deny the rights of Ahlul Bayt and the status of Ahlul Bayt ignorantly, nor raise them above what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put them in. Either way of going to any of those extremes is an error that could lead to perhaps dalal and perhaps even shaqa or perishing. Wal-'ayadu billah. So we need to make sure that we are on the right platform of understanding our duty as followers of Ahlul Bayt and where we stand as the Shia of Ahlul Bayt. Whatever we had in discussing the necessity of prophethood applies when we come to the concept of imama. Just as we prove that a prophet, and we discussed this in quite a little bit of details in terms of why do we believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends prophets, and why do we believe in the necessity of prophethood. Just in brief, we spoke of the concept of the fadl and the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. From His grace, from His lutf, it is a necessity that this latif, the graceful, the gracious Lord, Creator, through His fadl and lutf, through His graciousness and His bounties, He sends guides so that mankind who are equipped with what could take them to the highest levels and also have characteristics that could take them beneath animals, they have the discipline to make sure they're on the right path and they don't deviate and end up in error and end up beneath animals in their status of as a creation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we discussed that the fact that those characteristics that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put in us as a necessity or as a part of the necessary characteristics for us to continue. If you recall, I spoke of loving oneself, that hubbun nafs. If it is not existent at all, it simply means destruction, the end of the human race. Because one has to have some sort of love for himself and some sort of protection of himself or herself to continue existing. But that has to be disciplined, and that has to be basically sharpened in the right direction, and the edges have to be sharpened well so that it doesn't hurt us and harm us and end up with us being like Fir'aun saying, Ana Rabbukumul A'la, I am your greatest God. You know, he could not see a limit for himself. And that is because of that selfishness and love for oneself that was not sharpened and brushed and cleaned and purified, and therefore he ended up there. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the messengers. Just as we believe in the necessity of the messengers, we believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will continuously guide mankind with divine leaders, whether it be at the time of the Anbiya themselves, or after the final messenger, because there's no need for a new school, a new religion. What the Prophet brought to mankind, what our final messenger salawatullah wa salamu alayhi brought for mankind, was complete. And he says, Al-yawma akmaltu lakum dinakum. Today I completed your religion. In Surah Al-Ma'idah, this declaration came that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala completed the religion. In other words, the religion that mankind need to adhere to in order to achieve happiness and pleasure in this world and in the hereafter is this religion of Islam. It's complete. It is not lacking anything. And we went through that also, if you recall, in our discussion about the religion of Islam and Quran, that the religion of Islam is complete. It does not need anything to complete it. It covers everything that mankind would ever come across as an issue or a concept or a matter or a problem until the Day of Judgment. Islam covers it all. However, Islam and the Quran and the Prophet ﷺ himself clearly stated that I am leaving behind two things. One is the Quran, which also contains everything, and it's the Thiqlul Akbar, the heavier of the two weighty things. However, it comes together with my family, wa'atrati. Those two together are the necessity for us to be continuously on the guided path, and with that, either of them, one would go astray. And he says, وَإِنَّهُمَا لَن يَفْتَرِقَا. These two will never separate until the Day of Judgment. حَتَّى يَرِدَ عَلَيَّ الْحَوْض. And this is the clear narration which is in books Sunni and Shia narrated this narration, it is mutawatir, it is it is not doubtful, it is clear that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed that those two things remain together until the Day of Judgment. The Quran and the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In other words, those divine leaders. So we understand through the Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلِكُلِّ قَوْمٍ هَادٍ. Every nation has its guide. We understand that every time and every era there would be a divine leader, a guide from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guiding humanity. And that is the belief of not just Shia, believe it or not, Shia and Sunni believe in that. How do I say that? Now, when in the school of Ahlul Bayt, we believe in the 12 Imams, and in the current time, we believe in our Imam Al-Hujjah, Ajjalallah Ta'ala Farajah Al-Sharif, who is in occultation. What about the other parties? They still believe, this is again coming to our common sense, they still believe that this religion of Islam that is complete and that is to guide us until the Day of Judgment has rules and regulations. And how do I understand these rules and regulations? Muslims differed. Some of them prayed in one way, others prayed in other ways. Some of them folded their hands during Salat, some of them put their hands down during Salat. Some of them did their wudu with their hands coming from the tip of their fingers to the elbow. Some of them did it the other way. So we want to understand which is the right way. Ta'abbud, even worshipping. We don't know which is the right way. And there are so many different schools. Which one is the right school? So Muslims, all Muslims, when I say Muslims, all Muslims chose for themselves a leader after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You see, in the history of Islam, until today, every party has a leader. And they have chosen for themselves a leader after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that would teach them how to do and how to perform certain acts of worship and how to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and what is right from what is wrong. So they had, for instance, our Sunni brothers, they've had from the times, the early times, they had the first Imam, which is Malik ibn Anas. Anas, who served in the house of the Prophet for a few years. His son Malik, he was a servant in the house of Rasulullah. His son Malik became a scholar, and later on he started giving fatwa, and he became an Imam appointed and empowered by the Amawi Khalifa of the time. Specifically, it was Alu Marwan that supported him and gave him the position, and he became the Mufti, the one who gives the fatwa. After him came the Abu Hanifa al-Nu'man. After him came the Imam that is known as Shafi'i, and then later on came Hanbali, Ahmad ibn Hanbal, and later on they had others, Imam Uza'i and other Imams that they had, and they considered these to be the guides. Why do they have them? Why do we not say just Rasulullah? Because they know that is not enough. We have so many ahadith of how the Prophet prayed, how he observed fasting, how he observed his Hajj and other ibadat, and so many of them contradict one another, and it is confusing. Therefore, they had to have those divine, those leaders, imams. However, not having divine leaders led them into imams that contradicted one another. So there would come an imam that say to them, you pray with your hand folded. Another one says to them, if you pray with your hands folded, it is batil. And that is the Imam of Medina. And typically those who are followers of the Shafi'i would not fold their hands because he was the Imam of Medina. And he says the people of Medina must be the ones who are correct. Why? Because the people of Medina at his time, he says that the people of Baghdad and Iraq, they used to fold. But the people of Medina at his time had their hands down. Therefore, he says they must be correct. If anyone was around the Prophet, are the people of Medina. Therefore, they are the closest. Yet we see that when it comes to the Imams of Ahlul Bayt, salawatullah wa salamu alayhim, they are absolutely, from the first to the last, 100% unanimous and on every decision and every verdict that they give. Not only that, we believe that the Imam not only is divinely commissioned to be the leader, not only mansoob, nasb ilahi, and in the sense that the Prophet is mansoob, the Imam is also mansoob. We believe that the Imams have the same attributes in terms of infallibility, in terms of being the best in their ethics and morals, in their morality and rationality. If you recall last week, I believe we spoke of the fact that the Prophet and every Prophet at his time has to be, common sense dictates that they have to be the most rational and the most ethical people of their time, the prophets. Otherwise, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is appointing a figure that is less rational, less wise than some others. People around him would think, why would I follow this person? Every time Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala appointed a prophet, he was the most rational and the most ethical person of their time. We believe the same applies to the Imams. The Imams of Ahlul Bayt, just like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He revealed to the messengers, the Imams of Ahlul Bayt had a similar concept, though our scholars call it typically inspiration rather than revelation. Because revelation is regarding a message that could lead people to think that now he's bringing a new message. So the angel is giving him a new set of beliefs or teachings and rituals. That is not applicable. What they are getting is not subject to error whatsoever. They are definitely 100% correct in every inspiration they get from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when they are asked. And that is why the Imams of Ahlul Bayt, whenever they were asked, never ever did they have to say, let me research and answer, or let me think about it. Immediately they would give the answer. And that was their practice. Amirul Mu'mineen salawatullah wa salamu alayhi, he stands up on the minbar and he says, oh people, ask me before you lose me. Not once, several times. Take advantage of me being amongst you and ask me, because I know, he says, I know the paths in the heavens more than the paths on earth. This is the status of the Imam. This is the status of the divine leaders. They don't need to think about the answer. Whenever they're asked about anything, absolutely anything. Now, how does that inspiration work? I'll explain it just to bring it closer to our minds. However, it is on a totally different level. Because we do not believe, on the one hand, that the Imams or the Prophets were anything but humans. We believe that they are humans. Definitely. And this is clear in the Holy Quran. The Prophet numerous times in the Quran, he says, Subhanallah, hal kuntu illa basharan rasula. Am I anything but a human messenger? And other ayat say that if there were angels on earth, God would have sent an angel to them as a messenger. Since there are humans on earth, God sent humans as messengers. But are these humans, this is what we need to understand, are these humans at same level as you and I, average humans, or are they different? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, بَلْ عِبَادٌ مُكْرَمُونَ. They are honored by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are chosen. And in another ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ اصْطَفَى آدَمَ وَنُوحًا وَآلَ إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَآلَ عِمْرَانَ عَلَى الْعَالَمِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose, and that chose is also purified. Istafa has two meanings within it: to choose and to purify. He had chosen and purified Adam and Nuh and Ala Ibrahim, the family of Ibrahim, and the family of Imran, over mankind, over Alameen, over the worlds in fact, or over all mankind, everyone. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose them. And that is why we read in the Holy Quran that they were not average people, the messengers. The same thing applies to the Imams of Ahlul Bayt. Not that they are higher than humans and make them somehow tajalli, wal'ayadu billah, somehow they are, the impersonation of God. This is definitely false, but not to say that they are limited to what average humans are limited to. And so they have to learn at a school, because we know for a fact the Prophet did not go to any school. And that is the meaning of ummi. When we say that the Prophet is ummi, it does not mean that he does not know how to read and write. Ummi is one who is not taught, who is basically on what his mother from what the mother has given them. Okay? Not taught. He did not go to any school. So we cannot say the Prophet, wal-ayadu billah, is illiterate. That is completely false. We can say he did not go to a school. He was not taught by anyone. Yes, he did not write. That was a decision, a decree from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that was part of the proof of the Holy Quran, that it is divine. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran that you did not write a book before. وَلَا تَخُطُّهُ بِيَمِينِكَ إِذَا لَارْتَابَ الْمُبْطِلُونَ. Because those who would debate, who would question you, would then hesitate about Quran if you were writing before the Quran. So he did not write before the Quran, not that he did not know how, or he could not read, because anything he wanted to know, he could know through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I'll tell you what I mean. The Prophet did not go to any school. We know that for a fact. He was not taught by anybody. We know that for a fact. They accused him. In the Quran we say, وَقَالُوا, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَقَالُوا مُعَلَّمٌ. He was taught. And then they said, what? Mad, majnoon. وَالْعَيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. Why? Because he's saying things that he has to bring from someone. And they knew he did not learn under anybody. Nobody was his mentor or his teacher. Now the same thing applies to the Imams of Ahlul Bayt. Besides Rasulullah, nobody taught Amirul Mu'mineen salawatullah wa salamu alayhi. Yes? He says, علمني رسول الله ألف باب من العلم. The Prophet taught me 1,000 categories of knowledge. Within each there is 1,000 categories. So 1,000,000 subject topics, categories of knowledge and science were taught to him by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he taught it to Ahlul Bayt. When the chance was given to them, Imam Baqir alayhi salam and Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, they set up a university. Through their students, one becomes the best physician of his time, and he becomes the pioneer of many medicine and many medications and medical studies, and becomes also the pioneer of mathematical studies. How does that work? You're telling me somebody who never went to any school, who was never taught by anybody, can teach his children and grandchildren, who also were never taught by anyone besides their parents and ancestors, they can become the pioneers in every science, every technology you could think of. They were the teachers and leaders of, and they pioneered the school that later brought about so many inventors and so many scientists that the world benefited from in the golden ages. How did they do that? And that is what we speak of, which is the concept of intuition on one level and inspiration on a higher level. And I'll explain what I mean. Psychology proves that mankind are able and capable of reaching certain realities through reflection and intuition without the power of reasoning in some cases, without reasoning, without mentors, without teachers. They say sometimes you could think, you could sit and reflect on something and be somehow inspired or have some intuition that leads you, in Farsi we call it hads, that leads you to certain conclusions that many scientists and many researchers before you spent hours and hours and years trying to solve that problem, and they could not. And that happens. In the world of science, it happens all the time. Many of us may have had those moments where you sit down and between you and yourself, you figure something out. Whether it be something to do with the day-to-day things that you deal with, business transactions, learning how to do things in terms of, even a handyman issues. You can think about those, or you can think about child discipline issues with, one's physical health and well-being and so on. Sometimes you get some sort of, inspiration or intuition that out of a sudden you solve a problem that you've been thinking about and researching about for so long without someone actually teaching you that. When we speak of the same concept on a whole different level, on the purest minds and the purest hearts that could listen to the teachings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and get the right inspiration, then we're speaking of a totally different level. Between them and themselves, immediately they have access to every answer if they want to, and when they want to, they have access to every answer that they want. And that is why Amir al-Mu'mineen was capable of saying, ask me before you lose me. And nobody before him and no one after him besides Anbiya could ever make such a claim. Anybody who made that claim was humiliated. There was one scholar who got up on the minbar and wanted to try that. And one lady came up and started asking him questions. Immediately she humiliated him, literally. A lady that often we think, well, they know less, and she had wisdom. She realized that this man is making a big claim. It does not befit him, therefore she humiliated him. Nobody can ever make that claim unless they are divinely inspired. And these are Ahlul Bayt, and this is the concept of imama that we believe. So we believe that they are infallible. We believe that they have that divine knowledge, access to divine knowledge from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Tonight, inshallah, we'll continue on the concept of imama, and we'll come to the concept of the present Imam, Ajjalallah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif. Just a note on that, just like the Prophet was a guide despite times that he went to the ghar, at times he would go to the ghar, and at times he was in the valley, the Sha'b Abi Talib, despite that he was still the guide for mankind. Our Imam, Ajjalallah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif, even in his occultation, he is وَلِكُلِّ قَوْمٍ had. He is the guide for mankind, though he might be in occultation until he returns. Tonight, I want us to just reflect on one example from the life of Imam Al-Askari salawatullah wa salamu alayh. And because after the martyrdom of Imam Al-Askari came the wilaya of Al-Imam Al-Hujjah Ajjalallah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif, and that is the real meaning of Eid al-Zahra as we remember it and celebrate it, because after the martyrdom of Al-Imam Al-Askari comes the time where it is the awaited one, the wilaya of the awaited one, that the prophets and the imams before him and Fatima Zahra salamullah alayha, when she was oppressed, was awaiting for the return of this imam. I want us to reflect on the life of his father through his birth. One of the concepts that Muslims were well aware of is the concept of Mahdi. Sunni and Shia, all of them believed in it. So many riwayat that they could not deny the concept. So many riwayat that so many people throughout the history of Islam after the Prophet tried to use that to claim, claim that they are the Mahdi, to gain certain influence, power, money, whatever it is that they were after. And this was based on the fact, had it not been for all the riwayat, they could not make such a claim. They could not use such a concept. So they used it for a reason. Even Abbasis themselves, they tried to make it out that Al-Mahdi, one of their khulafa, la'natullah alayhim, was known as Al-Mahdi. They were saying that he is the one. And that's it. He is the Mahdi. Nonetheless, people knew that that is not the case. Real Muslims, real followers of Rasulullah, they realized that this person does not have the characteristics. He is an oppressive man. He committed so much crime and manslaughter and killings of innocent people. Therefore, they did not believe in him. Nonetheless, Abbasis were trying and making every effort to stop the concept of Mahdi from occurring. And as they were counting the imams from Ahlul Bayt, they knew that the Imam Al-Askari salawatullah wa salamu alayhi is the 11th imam. Therefore, they have to try and stop the 12th imam. So they were trying not to allow the imam to have children, in fact. From when he became an adult, they had midwives and they had ladies inspecting the women in his home on a daily basis, making sure that nobody or no child is born in that house. None of those ladies, his wife or the female in that home, none of them would have children. They were trying their best to make sure. Yet the Imam knew from the knowledge through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through the teachings of his fathers, he knew that that is happening. And he knew when it was happening. Therefore, just before it happened, he called for his aunt to come. And he told her that this is the night that the awaited one will be born. She narrates, she says, when he told me that, I asked him which one. And he said to me, it would be through, he pointed, the name is given, different names have been given to the mother of the Imam Al-Hujjah Ajjalallah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif, whether she was Nargis or Narjis or the other names that were given. In any case, he said it would be through her. And therefore, she said, but she has no signs of giving birth or being even pregnant. She has no signs. He said to her, be patient, my aunt. And she narrates, she says it continued. I was waiting throughout the night. And when it came later in the night, some doubt came to my mind. And she says, as soon as that doubt came to my mind, he was behind the curtain performing salat and ibadah on that night, the eve of the 15th of Sha'ban, a very blessed night, very special night, in his salat and ibadah, as the dad came to my mind, immediately he said to me, who? Al-Imam Al-Askari salawatullah wa salamu alayhi. He says to his aunt, O aunt, O Hakima, do not doubt and be patient. The time will come. This is the divine inspiration that we speak of. You read in the life of Imam Al-Askari, he had a very short life. And you'll find so many examples of him telling and foretelling of what is to come. Because people started doubting. And he would show, like the Imams of Ahlul Bayt at times would, he would show the people. In that instance, he tells her, until she says later on in the night, it came. And inshallah, we will narrate the full narration in the evening of the birth of the Imam Ajjalallah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif. However, tonight I want us to remember the difficulties that came upon his father despite his status. It was a time he was in the Askar, it's called, which is the city of the army. It was such difficult time that we are told in the narration, we are told he would tell his companions and his lovers, do not even greet me in the streets, because if you look towards me and greet me, your love for me will be apparent and you will be prosecuted. That's how much they were prosecuting anyone who followed or loved or was an adherent of the school of Ahlul Bayt. He would tell them, if you see me, and this is a narration, if you see me, do not look towards me, because then you will be kind of forced to greet and show the admiration and love that you have, and you will be then prosecuted as a result. This was the situation the Imam was living in. So difficult that the time of, especially towards the end of the life of the Imam, yet the Mu'tamid, La'natullah alayhi al-Abbasi, he did not have enough of the prosecution, of keeping the house of the Imam under surveillance, of sending the midwives and testing, of all sorts of prosecution and harm that he brought to the house of the Imam and to the Imam. That was not enough. Eventually, he could not stand the love and admiration of the people for the status of the Imam, and he sends for the Imam to be poisoned. The Imam, when he was poisoned, he was very young, and the narrations say that he was in so much pain. He would be either laying in his deathbed, or when he would get up for salat, some narrations narrate that he would not be able to stand for long before he has to bend from the pain that he was going through. Sallallahu alayk ya Aba Muhammad, ya Hasan ibn Ali, ayyuha al-Zaki al-Askari, ibn Rasulillah, يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله، وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا، يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله، يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. Ask for your hajat with this Imam of Ahlul Bayt. Ask for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us to the school of Ahlul Bayt, to be the real followers, those who know the status of the Imam and obey the orders of the Imam. When the Imam was in so much pain, they sent the doctors to witness and watch the Imam to make sure that he is departing with that poison until the news came. When the news came that the Imam had departed, they sent their doctors to give a false witness and say, this is Al-Hasan ibn Ali. This is the Imam of the Rafidah. He died a natural death, they say. This is the situation. The lovers of the Imam in the city of Samara could not withstand hiding their love anymore. The markets were closed. The city of Samara became all in funeral and mourning for the Imam. Yet I say, O Imam, O Askari, your departure was so difficult on the family, on the lovers of Ahlul Bayt. Yet your great-grandfather, Imam Hussein, in the land of Karbala, had no one coming and performing the funeral. He had no one coming to put a shroud on the body. They did not have to make a false witness and lie. Instead, they did not leave the body alone. They came and mutilated the body of our Imam, beheaded the Imam, left him for 3 days on the land of Karbala. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا آل محمد أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. نسألك اللهم وندعوك باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم إلهي بمحمد وعلي وفاطمة والحسن والحسين وبالتسعة المعصومين من ذرية الحسين. استجب دعواتنا يا الله. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج. اللهم اجعلنا من أنصاره وأعوانه والذابين عنه ومقوية سلطانه. اللهم ارزقنا توفيق الطاعة وبعد المعصية وصدق النية وعرفان الحرمة، وأكرمنا بالهدى والاستقامة. اللهم املأ قلوبنا بالعلم والمعرفة. اللهم طهر بطوننا من الحرام والشبهة. اللهم شاف مرضانا، ارحم موتانا، موتى الحاضرين الباذلين المؤسسين. ارحم موتانا وموتاهم جميعا بحرمة السورة المباركة الفاتحة تحفها صلوات. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.